I moved into the house in early November, when the world outside had already gone gray and bare. It was a rental, a tall, narrow Victorian on the edge of a quiet neighborhood, the kind of street where everyone keeps their curtains drawn and their heads down. I did not mind. I was coming out of a difficult year, a breakup, a job change, a long stretch of sleepless nights, and what I wanted more than anything was silence. The landlord showed me around on a Wednesday evening. The ceilings were high, the floorboards warm with old varnish, and the kitchen smelled faintly of pine cleaner and something older underneath it, something I could not name then. He handed me 2 keys on a plain brass ring and told me the heating could be temperamental. He said it with a little laugh, the way people do when they mean something without wanting to say it plainly. I did not ask what he meant. I signed the lease that same night. The first weeks were exactly what I had hoped for. I unpacked slowly, room by room. I cooked simple meals. I slept without the television on for the first time in years. The house felt enormous for one person. 3 floors, 4 rooms I never used. And that space, all that empty, quiet space, felt like medicine. I remember standing at the kitchen window one morning with a mug of tea, watching the fog sit low over the back garden and thinking, yes, this is what I needed. This is finally right. I noticed the attic on my second day. A plain white door in the upstairs hallway, just past the bathroom, with no handle, only a small brass latch at eye level. I opened it once, just to look. A pull cord for a light that did not work. Bare wooden steps disappearing upward into darkness. The smell that drifted down was dry and still, like the inside of an old book. I latched it shut and thought nothing more of it. Attics are for storage. Attics are for the things you do not want to look at. I had nothing to put up there and no particular desire to go up. Life settled into routine. I left for work at 7:30 each morning and returned by 6. I cooked, I read, I slept. On weekends, I walked the neighborhood, learning its rhythms. The couple 2 doors down who argued quietly on their front step every Saturday. The older woman across the road who kept a tabby cat that watched the street from the windowsill with great seriousness. Everything was ordinary. Everything was perfectly, blessedly ordinary. It started with food. I am careful about groceries. I live alone and I am methodical. I buy exactly what I plan to eat for the week and no more. So when I reached for the loaf of bread I had bought 2 days before and found it was already down to 3 slices, I paused. I stood there with the bag in my hand and tried to retrace my meals. Toast on Tuesday morning, 1 sandwich on Tuesday evening. That would leave 6 slices, not 3. I shook my head. I must have miscounted. I must have eaten without thinking. That is what you tell yourself. That is always what you tell yourself first. Then it was the milk. Then a tin of soup I did not remember opening. Small things, easily explained. I was tired. I was distracted. I was not paying proper attention. I wrote a little shopping list each Sunday and began checking it more carefully during the week. For 2 weeks, everything balanced. I started to feel slightly foolish for having noticed at all. Then I heard it. It was a Thursday night, perhaps 11 o'clock. I had just turned off my bedroom light and was lying in the particular stillness of a house at night, that deep, padded quiet. And then, from somewhere above me, came a sound. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was the softest possible creak, the kind a floorboard makes when weight is placed on it and then slowly released. 1 creak, then silence. Then, perhaps 30 seconds, another creak, slightly to the left of the first. I lay completely still. My breathing had stopped of its own accord. I was aware of my heartbeat in a way I am not usually, this sudden, interior percussion beating against my ribs. Old houses make sounds. Everyone knows this. Pipes expand and contract. Timbers shift. The cold gets into the structure and moves things. I reminded myself of all of this as I lay there in the dark. I reminded myself very carefully and very deliberately, the way you remind a frightened child that there is nothing under the bed. After 10 minutes of silence, I turned the lamp back on and read until 1 in the morning. I did not sleep well. Over the following week, I heard the sound 4 more times, always at night, always after 11, always from directly above my bedroom, which placed it, when I finally forced myself to map it out on paper, precisely beneath the attic floor. I told myself pipes. I told myself cold. I told myself this is an old house and old houses are alive in ways that new houses are not. But I had started sleeping with the lamp on, and I had started, without consciously deciding to, leaving the kitchen light on when I went to bed so that the hallway was not entirely dark. And I had started listening. I had become a listener in my own home. On the 14th day after I first heard the sound, I found the wrapper. It was in the kitchen bin, a foil crisp packet, the kind I don't buy. I know what I buy. I know what I eat. I pulled it out and held it under the overhead light and felt the first true cold finger of dread run from the base of my skull straight down my spine. It was not mine. There was no explanation for it. It was simply there, buried under a piece of used kitchen roll, as though someone had tried to hide it. I sat down at the kitchen table. I did not move for perhaps 15 minutes. The house around me was completely quiet, that particular quality of quiet that now felt less like peace and more like held breath, like something waiting. I went through the rooms systematically, which I realize now was both brave and naive. I checked every window, every door, all locked, all latched, nothing disturbed, nothing out of place. I stood in the upstairs hallway for a long time and looked at the attic door. The little brass latch sat exactly as I had left it the last time I checked. Or had I moved it? Had it been on the left or the right? I could not be certain. I could not be certain of anything anymore. I did not open the attic door that night. I locked my bedroom door, jammed the back of a chair under the handle, and sat awake until 3 in the morning listening to the house. Nothing moved, nothing creaked. Absolute silence, which by that point frightened me almost as much as the sounds had. The next morning, I called my friend Daniel and told him I thought I was losing my mind. I described the food, the sounds, the crisp packet. There was a pause on the line. He said, "Have you been up in the attic?" I said I had not. He said, "Go up in the attic." He said it gently, but I could hear something careful in his voice, something that meant he was thinking the same thing I had been refusing to think. I waited until broad daylight. I bought a torch at the corner shop, a proper one, heavy and bright. I stood at the attic door for a long time before I lifted the latch. The smell hit me first. That dry, bookish smell I remembered from the first time, but now with something else inside it, something warmer and more specific, something lived in. My hand tightened around the torch. I climbed the stairs slowly, one at a time, pressing each step close to the wall where the boards would be least likely to speak. The torch beam swung across exposed rafters, insulation, old water pipes wrapped in yellow foam, a cardboard box against one wall, probably left by a previous tenant, a small round window at the far end caked with grime, letting in a dull disk of light. And then I saw it. In the far corner, beyond the cardboard box, pulled close against the sloped roof where the ceiling came down to meet the floor, a sleeping bag, dark green, cheap, the kind sold in camping shops. Alongside it, a plastic carrier bag with the shapes of tins pressing through the sides, a bottle of water, a small battery-powered lantern switched off, a phone charger coiled beside it, the cable running along the baseboard to a socket near the hatch that I had never noticed was there. Someone was living up here. Someone had been living up here, above my bedroom, above my life, for how long? The sleeping bag was compressed in the way sleeping bags get after weeks of use. The plastic bag was heavy. The water bottle was only a quarter full. Someone had been up here long enough to establish a rhythm, long enough to know my patterns, long enough to know when I slept, when I left, when it was safe to come down. I did not scream. I want to be honest about that. I did not scream because the fear that moved through me in that moment was too deep and too cold to make noise. It had been building for weeks, layer by layer, and now it simply completed itself. I turned and I went back down the stairs. I went back through the hallway. I went out through the front door and stood on the pavement in the thin winter light and called the police. My hands were shaking so badly that I dialed the wrong number twice. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes, a man and a woman, both calm in that particular professional way that either reassures you or frightens you more depending on your state of mind. I showed them the attic. They went up ahead of me, torches drawn, and I waited at the bottom of the steps listening to the sounds of the old boards under their weight. They came back down after a few minutes. The sleeping bag and the bag of food were still there. The person was not. The small round window at the far end of the attic, they told me, was unlatched from the inside. The exterior drop was manageable onto a flat-roofed extension, then the back garden wall. Someone who had planned for this eventuality. Someone who had heard me come through the front door and climb the stairs and had just enough time.
I stood in the hallway and thought about that. I thought about the sound of my feet on the stairs. I thought about how, while I had been climbing toward the attic with my torch and my terror, whoever was up there had been listening to every step I took, had been pressed against that window, waiting for their moment.